5, 4,
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to 2020. Not Barbara Walters. This is the Mosby Learning Podcast. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is a brand new year, a chance for all of us to make brand new mistakes again. So that's very exciting. And in this episode, we're going to talk about a few different things, but we're not going to talk about it just me here and myself. And if you're wondering, I'm Dan Hurt from Mississauga, Ontario.
And I'm Adam Costix from Dallas-Fort Worth.
And I'm Cynthia Gibbs from the Great Lone Star State.
There you go. Wow, that's the most, that is a big chunk of land that you are laying claim to there, but that's all right.
I told my husband how I introduced myself, and he was cracking up.
what, like differently each time? Is
Yeah.
Is that what he thought was he was?
Nobody's going to be able to find her
Yes.
in the state.
He's like, good
These
job.
are not the hosts you're looking for.
He's like,
Which,
good
interestingly
job.
enough, though, talking about Texas, I just heard something on NPR that Texas now has 9% of the United States population, and there's 1,000 people come into Texas every single day, moving from across the country
I
and
know,
moving into
that's
Texas.
psychotic, isn't that?
I'm sorry, what was that percentage?
We are 9% of the overall population of the United States, and over 1,000 people every single day come to Texas. So we're basically netting after people leave. Over 1,000 people continuing to come to Texas.
Okay, so hang on. Are you shocked that it's a high number or it's a low number? What are you shocked
I just
at?
thought that was pretty good. I mean, there's 50 states and we're almost 10% of it.
Yeah, they're
Yeah, I
saying
suppose.
a lot of Californians are moving here. So I think you should move back, Dan. Because we're popular.
You know,
It's the trend.
Well, see, I thought California was popular. Why are people leaving California going to Texas? That's weird.
Texas.
Yes.
Because Texas, because everything's bigger there. That's
No,
what I hear.
taxes.
Taxes.
Well, in
Taxes.
Texas,
Oh, I
because
thought you said
everything's
Texas.
bigger in
He
Texas.
was
Yes.
using his Michigan accent.
Yeah,
That's
everything's
right.
bigger here except taxes.
Yeah.
Taxes, they are
Well,
smaller.
and there's a lot of
smaller.
companies moving here.
Right.
So, yeah. And you can afford a house for like less than half the price, maybe sometimes.
Oh, well, let me tell you a story about moving from the Fort Worth area to Toronto, the center of the Canadian universe. Whoa. House prices are quite a bit different, but this isn't a real estate podcast. This is a learning podcast. If you wanted to get the show notes for this particular episode, this is 17, guys. This is exciting. This is good, right? We're climbing leaps and bounds here. Mosby.7 is where you're going to find the show notes for this. And Adam is always, he is just sifting through the inbox of Mosby Learning at gmail.com. And he is, once he actually gets an email, he's going to tell us. And we're going to be very excited. We're going to tell everybody else.
You guys will be the first to know. I'm
that's
sure
right.
you'll receive a text whenever that email comes in.
I think the Mosby Learning Twitter handle should tweet out what the first email is. Like,
He's going to
hey,
mark
we got
it.
an email.
Yeah, send
It's
an
from
email.
so-and-so.
And you know what? Actually, that's a great point. If somebody sends an email to the Mosby Learning at Gmail, they will they'll get a shout out on Twitter and maybe Instagram too.
I'm going to make
Even
up a
if they
fake
are
email
a
account and
prince
send one.
From, what?
I'm going to make a fake email account and send it.
Hey, you'll get
You're
a
such
shout.
a troll sometimes.
You'll get a shout
Cynthia.
out on Twitter.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
All right, this episode we're going to talk about a few things. We've got some headlines, some interesting headlines. Some that could it be fixed possibly with training. We're going to look at that. Before we do, though,
You done messed up, Aaron!
we don't really have any significant notes as far as things that we did wrong previously in this recent episode anyhow, but I did want to quickly
Which
just
is
say
shocking
that
because, at the end of the day, I was gone for 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And there's been nothing wrong. It's been perfect.
Yeah.
It's
3
smooth,
episodes.
it's
We
smooth
think it's a
sailing.
trend.
it's correlation is not causation. That's I've heard that said before.
Oh, no.
However, I think there's
Countdowns are
always an exception to a
perfect.
rule.
Everything's perfect. Portland's
Yes.
not saying anything. It's flawless.
So if we get dinged this next one, I think we know what the issue
Well,
is.
we'll have to just see. We'll just have to see. I don't
Common
know how this thing
denominator.
goes.
Yeah, wonderful.
This is just a thing. But what I was going to say was there was a couple episodes ago. Actually, the first one that Adam completely bailed on was the episode with me and Gibbs talking about facility. But what I was going to say was there was a couple episodes ago. Actually, the first one that Adam completely bailed on was the episode with me and Gibbs talking about facilitation, and he didn't even tell us he wasn't coming, guys. He just didn't come.
It just didn't show up. It was kind of like a no call, no show. Like basically when you're just out at work, you're like no call, no show, nothing.
So, but don't worry. Afterwards, we gave him a written verbal warning, so he's being reprimanded appropriately. But there was a book that I said I was going to give everybody in the show notes, and going back to my moving from Texas to Toronto story, there's still a lot of boxes that we're sifting through because we just finally got into our final resting place here. Gosh, I hope it isn't. But and so I couldn't, but I looked it up, and the book is called The Secrets of Facilitation: The Smart Guide to Getting Results with Groups. And this is written by Michael Wilkinson, and it's pretty cool. And actually, there are conversation scripts that he provides in that book. So there's a lot of context, and then I think there's about 50 different I think he calls them secrets, trainers' secrets or something like that, facilitators' secrets. But it's just a simple, small thing, and it's a light bulb every single time. It's like, oh yes, that's a very important thing. So anyhow, that was a book that I said I was going to share with everybody in the show notes, and in this particular show, I'm confident that I will get those in the show notes. Again, that's mosby.ca/017 where you're going to find those. Now, if there's anything else that you guys want to throw into the correction section, let me know. Gibbs, anything for corrections? Because I know Adam's been completely just off the map for almost a month at this point.
Completely off the grid.
Yeah. Nothing, Gibbs, nothing from the Lone Star State?
No corrections.
Excellent. Glad to hear it.
I'm proud.
Yeah. Nothing, Gibbs, nothing from the Lone Star State?
No corrections.
Excellent. Glad to hear it.
I'm practically perfect in every way.
Practically perfect. That's right. This is what we do. This is what you do. I've heard previously you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. What do you think about that?
Huh?
Hey, say that again.
You are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
So 2 are better, 2 are worse?
I'm behavior-wise. If you took the 5 people that you spend the most time in and you turned them into one person, that's kind of who you are.
5 people.
Is this concept this isn't
way above
I'm
the
trying
head?
to figure out if he's doing a haiku. What?
No, it's not. Everything's not a effing haiku, okay? I send texts to everybody out there.
Everything's in haiku. So you're saying you take personality traits or you take capabilities?
Yeah, obviously it's not height and weight. Yeah, personality traits, the things you say, the ideas you have, those things.
So the 4 people who you spend the most time with.
I'm done.
Is who you're influenced to be. You become them. Oh God, I'm in trouble.
I don't know if you become them. I mean, it's just you
pick up their
you become
habits.
20% of them, I guess. Yeah, there you go.
I was going to say,
trouble.
Gibbs, I think we had 25 hours one week on Microsoft Office. It tracks who you spend time with, from a meetings perspective.
And yet you want to have a one-on-one with me tomorrow.
I was going to say we'll have a one-on-one about that.
That's what we're doing right now, I thought.
Yeah, let's take the agenda. And then Dan, I talk to you for hours on every week, so.
Yepper.
You guys are parts of me.
Gosh, that's frightening.
At least 20%.
20% of my time.
So you put your wife in there, maybe a couple kids. Boom, there you go.
That's me.
That's you. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to headlines because this is completely off the trails here. So the next, the first headline, this was kind of an interesting one that was called Augment Your Training Reality with a Video. I don't want to say it's actually much of an article because it wasn't, but I did want to talk about it. And this is from, believe it or not, trucknews.com, not a website I had heard of before I saw this article, but it's about a product really. It's kind of an announcement of sorts. But the idea is that they can using smart devices. And I don't mean overly, just like a phone or a tablet, anything that has a data sort of connection. At least that's the image that I've got from the article, which is about, I don't know, it looks like a haiku itself. It's only 4 small paragraphs. But the idea is that you would use, as a technician, presumably working on a truck, you could use this platform to get a subject matter expert in a video conference with you while you're doing the thing.
Yes.
You're trying to fix X, Y, and Z, and then you get somebody on the other. You say, I don't know how to do this. So you dial up somebody, or you select them from a draw. I don't know how it works. I don't know what the interface looks like.
FaceTime support.
Well, so that's what I got out of it. And to me, it didn't seem revolutionary. Now, what do you guys think about this, just as a concept?
I love it from a concept, right? It's kind of real time help. It's almost like a help desk more than I think training per se. I get stuck and let me have a real time person here to talk to you, but I don't really understand the difference between that and what you could do with FaceTime.
Yeah, me too. I think there might be maybe a document sharing element to it. Within the
web
platform
portal
too.
So it just kind of combines it all together?
I think so. So I think it takes maybe. So what do we call this? What if we called it like an intranet or an LMS that didn't suck, and we put live support in there if you need it?
So
Does
what
that sound
if
right?
the other thing I could think of? So you know how right now on your computer, the IT can go remote and take control of your computer.
Yeah.
I wonder if
Yes.
like this guy, he's like looking and the guy can watch him do the actual tire change or whatever.
Yeah, it could.
Yeah,
Maybe.
it kind of reminds me, like in a little bit different, but in the kind of the same vein. I was renting a car when I was on vacation for the last month and a half, and at the Thrifty rental counter, there was, the standard people standing behind the desk, and then there was 4 screens. And at those 4 screens, they had a phone, and then there was 4 screens. And at those 4 screens, they had a phone, and you could talk to somebody, and that person popped right up on screen and started helping you like they were live. Obviously, they were not live. They were I don't know where they were, but they were helping customers just like live people. And you think about
Well,
scaling.
hang on, what do you mean? Why do you say obviously they weren't live?
Well, they weren't in person, right? They were live. They were
Oh, so they
were live.
gotcha.
They were computers, but I mean, they weren't.
Gotcha.
They weren't in person. They were off somewhere else, right? Probably in a call center somewhere, and they all had they looked like they were in an office, their own office, and they were helping clients, rent their cars and everything like that. Everything that the person needed that would normally stand up at the counter, which makes sense because then you don't have to staff all these different offices. They can staff one office and then help lots of different customers. I think it's kind of the same type of technology though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a remote person providing an answer.
I mean,
think
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it depends upon what you're doing, right? When you're talking about this article, you're talking about the trucking news on doing something from a repair procedure. So I think that interaction where you can see what the mechanic is doing would be critical. So it's like, hey, I've got this lug nut. If I don't see it, there's a lot of lug nuts. If he hoists it up, and as a teacher, I can see what he's doing. It's go to your right a little bit. Nope, that one over there.
Yeah,
That I can see actually pretty powerful.
Like I've been in situations where I have a hard time describing something that, like, just the thing that's in front of me. I have a hard time describing it to somebody. So maybe just that showing them on the spot, like this thing, like the Knudsen valve. I don't know what. Oh, it's a Knudsen valve. Now I know.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah. No, it's a made up thing actually.
Okay. It sounded real.
But they can watch you, and they can watch you as you're doing each section. Like,
That's right.
now take off this.
Yeah. No, it's a made up thing actually.
It sounded real.
But they can watch you, and they can watch you as you're doing each section. Like,
That's right.
now take off this first part, and
Slowly.
now
Slowly.
do this one.
Yeah.
No, but I think that the technology is cool. I don't really understand how it's different besides just melding it together with other platforms.
Well, maybe that's it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that either. It's like when you get a printer that also has a scanner. Like, well, this may be perfect for some people. So there's nothing wrong with having the extra option.
And for those who do better visually, watching someone do it rather than someone just telling you over the phone, this might be better.
That brings up a whole other set of problems, physically speaking. So you'd have to have some sort of maybe like I don't know if you guys have seen those gorilla pods, where it's basically a tripod, but all the legs are bendy and rubber, so you can put them around anything. Yeah. Because if you're having your mentor, I'm assuming they're calling it a mentor because the whole thing's called an augmentor. So augmented or augmentation and mentor. But they would need to see what you're doing. So then you've got lighting issues. You've got stands that you have to worry about, or putting cameras into difficult places, especially if you're a technician. Maybe you're out in the field. So who knows? Who knows what that looks like? But all right, that's it. Unless you guys have anything else that's revelatory on that one.
Nope.
Gone. Done with it. I'm done with you. Moving on to 5 strategies for delivering complicated technical training. And this one was actually, where did this come from? This came from, I want to say TD.
Yeah, it's ATD.
Yeah, TD.org.
Yeah, TD.org by Sarah Wakefield. And she just wrote it. Right. She just wrote it 2 days ago. So these are fresh. I bring you the Mosby Learning Podcast, not just me. We've got a staff of thousands here. We bring you the fresh content, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, Sarah hit enter, submit, and it was on the Mosby Learning Podcast. That's how fast.
Pretty much. Yep. That's how it works, man. That's how it works. So yeah, she's a technical training supervisor, and she wrote this article called 5 Strategies for Delivering Complicated Technical Training. And it's not bad. There was a couple interesting notes in there. Does anybody else? It's not bad. There was a couple interesting notes in there. Does anybody else, you guys want to take lead on this, or you want me to kind of walk through it?
You can walk through it.
You can walk through it. We should establish that maybe before the episode next time, before we get into this. Okay, I'm going to walk through it after I have a sip of water. Let you guys enjoy this. The sound of a swallow. That's a George Carlin bit right there.
It is.
He's a funny dude, man.
I haven't gone back and watched a lot of his stuff from back in the day. It's been a long.
You haven't, or you should?
I should, and I have not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody should.
Yeah.
He was one of those guys. He was almost prophetic. He would say things that now, if you go back, you're like, oh my goodness, he knew the whole time.
Yes.
Yeah. So, anyways, Sarah Wakefield does a nice job kind of describing technical training, what it is, and it's basically just training on technical things. So it's not soft skills. You're training on a software. You're training on a device. You're training on this over there. You need to hit that button, that sort of stuff. And I think I've done a fair bit of that through my career. Basically, I've done more. If I had to draw a line or kind of a split the softer side of things with the technical side of things, I'm probably 80% technical, 20% soft. That's probably where I stand on that.
I guess where I got confused on this article too is what is really considered complicated technical training? Is it like Cisco networking?
Why is that the word that gets hung up on you?
Because that's the title. Delivering
Did you read the article?
Complicated
She's pretty clear about this.
Technical training. I wasn't very clear on it.
Well, it's just, I guess, okay, so operating a blender, maybe that's not complicated.
Yeah. I mean,
processing alone through software with a lot of inputs and outputs, I would say that's complicated.
I guess.
Is that a fair distinction?
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Maybe. I think technical training would be like complicated, but not like the systems we train.
Well, I think she's talking about, and I think she kind of hits on it though, is like training developers when they're working with SMEs and they're just their eyes glass over, or the training developer who's trying to build a course that doesn't understand the content. Like let's say we went and contracted something out. Yeah, it doesn't sound hard for us to teach in our world, Gibbs, to teach a loan origination system because we do it all the time. But we go out to a contractor who's never done mortgage originations. They're going to be like, what is going on? I don't understand any of this. And so I think that's what she's talking about. Yeah, but if you're going
from one technical, like one military vehicle to a similar military vehicle, maybe that's not complicated. Yes. I don't know. I think we just have to move on from that distinction. And so one of the things that I kind of liked that what she said in there was, because this comes up in another article, we're going to that distinction. And so one of the things that I kind of liked that what she said in there was, because this comes up in another article we're going to talk about here, is it's a field fraught with challenges, some of which you may never anticipate. And I think that's it with soft skills, and I'm not saying that it's easy. I don't want to draw that comparison, but there might not be a situation that comes up in the room that's complicated. You might have to talk about something that happened previously, and hopefully you can leverage some ideas about how it worked. But when you're training a system, I mean, everything has to work properly. Maybe the practice elements, like I know when it comes to working with loans, the practice loans that you might be working with have to be set up properly. All the third-party stuff has to be functioning properly. And the system itself has to work. Otherwise, things can go sideways. And if you got a group of 10, 15 people sitting there and it goes sideways, you gotta do a little dancing. You know, you gotta kind of move.
Yeah.
I guess I'm saying that and this is kind of based on the line that's in here. It's fraught with challenges, some of which you may have never anticipated. I think that, like a system going down, systems don't go down in soft skill training. You might have somebody that says, oh, I really had this issue, blah, blah, blah. And you can kind of talk through it and work through it and maybe use it. But a system doesn't really go down. Whereas in technical training, it does, and they do. Does that make sense?
It does.
So I'm not saying one's harder than the other. I'm just saying that there's different problems, and the problem that you may confront is that exactly. Things just go sideways and they don't work like they're supposed to. One of the 5 things that she said, though, to make things a little bit easier, learn as much as you can. As much as you can. It seems obvious, I suppose, but I think one of the challenges is if you're new to material, how do you learn as much as you can in a field you're completely unfamiliar with? You know what I mean? Have you completely unfamiliar with? You know what I mean? Have you guys ever been in a situation where you've had to kind of, I don't want to say learn on the fly, but that you've been given a thing that you really know nothing about, and you now have to train on that or have to develop training on that? Is that familiar?
Have you worked for Adam?
I have.
Just go make that.
I have.
Go take care of it.
Well, tell me about an experience, Gibbs. That's what we're doing here. Or how have you handled the situation where you've had to learn something, not in the next 6 minutes, but you have to develop something, create something. How do you learn something to create material for it?
So, so we're going to talk about HSBC.
Dang
as one of the things.
I need a bell. I need a bell so badly. Or a cowbell? I don't know.
So, so there's been a lot of companies I work for in the financial industry, and because I've worked for a lot of
a bell.
People tell me to
Does
talk.
That work at all? There we go. There's the HSBC bell from now on.
And so almost, I walked into the auto world as a trainer. No auto industry experience, things like that. And so I had to learn collections. I had to learn how to be a funder. I had to learn how to be a buyer. And I had to learn back-end collections in order to train all of the various roles of it. And so, we were lucky back then because it wasn't a lot of baptism by fire. We had whole processes. And, I was actually talking to somebody about this the other day too. One of the things we did while we were there was, even if you were a collections trainer, as a trainer, you were required to spend 8 hours a month in their actual department. You were required to spend 8 hours a month in their actual department actually doing their job.
Wow, that's great.
And so I would do 8 hours a month of collections because it was required. There was no getting around it. It was a little different in a couple other areas because people got paid bonus off of it, obviously. And so it became a little different. So we created different things where there were other times where I would have to take supervisor calls, or there were other times where I would have to audit work, etc., because I wasn't.
So you're still doing the job, though, right?
Because I wasn't really allowed to mess with, their compensation they were going to get for it.
Well, that seems reasonable to me. What about working with SMEs? Like, did you ever interview SMEs as part of it?
Oh, yes. And we would interview SMEs. The whole material was built from SMEs, and the information reviewed the materials and approved it. It wasn't necessarily managers or directors who approved it. It was the actual SMEs. And it was always presented as the reason being a SME is a privilege. And a lot of times,
Wait, what do you mean by that statement?
because of your expertise and because of how great of an employee you are getting the privilege to do this special project with training.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And we had this big letter written out.
I can attest to that. At HSBC, when we did work there, I was in a totally different area, but SMEs, it was kind of an honor to be a SME. It was like, I'm working on this project to help the organization. That kind of permeated throughout the culture into different areas.
So when did this change? When did this change, this idea of, okay, I have to work on training to, like, where did the...
Throughout the culture into different areas.
So when did this change? When did this change, this idea of, okay, I have to work on training to, like, where did the enthusiasm go for developing training to make the organization a better place?
I think it's a culture thing based on your organization. Mm-hmm. And also, too, I think it's also where did it change to? I think some of it changed with the constant need of every quarter has to be better in most companies, right? Mm-hmm. So... when you have to play the long game, you look at things like training. When you're playing the short game of saying, hey, we got to do our stockholders that need every single quarter to have more growth, they don't look at it that way. It's everything I can do for these next 90 days, and then my report card's next 90 days. Whereas training, a lot of times the impact, yes, we have an impact, but it also generally is not a 90-day impact. It takes a lot of time that gets looked behind or forgot about.
So it sounds like you're blaming capitalism.
I completely blame capitalism.
Wow. I was hoping we wouldn't have to go there, but here we are.
So the other thing, though, I think, too, yes, I agree with Adam with it's a cultural change. I think also back in the day, training, at least at HSBC, got to the adult table, for lack of a better term. We weren't seen as a group that supports you. We built the relationships where we were partners. So when we told them, hey, we need this long, let us show you some analysis, let us show you what the whole process and what it's going to take. And because we've given them the results throughout time and showed them by allowing us this time, look at the impact it's had, they trusted us. And they trusted the future will definitely look like this, and that we're tired of Band-Aids, and how Band-Aids only did this.
That's good. I want to try to take this to a smaller level, though, because we're getting very, very high, and this is kind of more of a lower level sort of article. That's how do you do technical training better? So this first one was learn as much as you can. One of the things that she mentions in this particular, the opening line here of this section is that it will ask as many questions as possible, learn as much as you can, and it will eventually help. And that's one of those things that I've found where I'm going through user manuals, I'm going through quick reference guides, I'm going through the source material, and I kind of go over it a few times, flip through it a bunch of times, and then a month later, there was something, and I'll go back to it and have a look at that, All right, the next piece here, make your own dictionary. Have you guys ever done that before? Made your own dictionary based on the content that you're learning?
I have to for mortgage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that's actually something that another side of our team just made is, with mortgage, there's so many mortgage terms. Everything's an abbreviation. Our team just made is, with mortgage, there's so many mortgage terms. Everything's an abbreviation. And so, you got LTV and CLTV and, ARMS and FHA, every single thing, VA, like they just abbreviate everything. So I think dictionary was pretty easy in the financial sector. Mortgage, I've seen in auto loans, we used it a lot. And I'm sure there's other industries that do a lot of abbreviations that works. I did when I was in pharmaceuticals. I had a dictionary, a lot of interactions and different things that I had to remember. So I kind of created my own dictionary. Now I was on the sales side, but I created my own dictionary nonetheless to be more successful because it was like I needed to remember these types of, different terminology and whatnot. And so the dictionary helped.
Were they words you couldn't pronounce?
Yeah, pretty much. I just make it all up. Doctors would look at me and I just keep going. Like, God, who is this idiot? All up. Doctors would look at me and I just keep going. Like, God, who is this idiot?
One of the things that I had done in a previous life before I made it to work with you guys was I was working on. So my first job as a trainer, I knew I had a retail sales background, and that was it, really. And then just coming out of my book learning for L&D stuff. And so I went to this. It was a bank, and I was working on the mortgage side of things, and I had it was a curve. It was a long curve, but eventually, it started moving up as far as knowing and understanding the material, because what I had realized is that there were a lot of, and this is maybe more of a story about bringing people into an L&D team, where so many of the trainers had come from the business.
Yep.
They weren't prepared as a team to have someone come from outside of the business. What I wanted to do was make it easier for the next person. And so I developed these series of facilitator guides, which I think are still in use today.
Wow.
For people that are learning the particular classes that we had to be responsible for, that we had to train. And part of those those facilitator guides to learn the material, become kind of not a subject matter expert, but at least a qualified instructor, were these I call them DIY definitions.
Yep.
Where it's like, okay, go ask somebody about this, and here's the word, go ask them about that, go talk to them about that, and then come back and in this spot of this PDF, write your own definition for that thing. So it was kind of a structured activity for the trainers, so they can get a handle on it and kind of pass it downstream. And like I say, still being used today, and that was like 6 years ago that I made those things. So that's I think making your own definitions is important. It's very important. Another thing here, try it out. I don't think there's anything special there. I mean, that's when I was working there, and at my previous place before you guys, I spent a month and a half just stumbling around the system, turning over stones and seeing what buttons did. I mean, that was incredibly valuable for me. Being kind of a hands-on person. Is there anything you guys can think of where you didn't do that?
That's what I'm racking my brain is. Like, you pretty much have to do it.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much have to do it. I think actually, though, I'll look and say from a team perspective, we probably don't do enough of a good job of it. It's something that I actually, bringing this up, probably need to get better at, of sending out the team to go and see some of the things. And so, yes, we're talking technical training, but talking any type of training, right? So if we say, hey, we need to go train our salespeople, well, we should definitely go out in the field here and there, right? We should go see what they're doing, or do a ride along. Definitely go out in the field here and there, right? We should go see what they're doing, or do a ride along. And, bringing that up, I probably do a bad job of kind of getting the team out there to do some of those ride alongs.
But not even just ride-alongs. We're talking all of the areas we support. Have you you spent time in originations? If you're training
or just wherever.
If you're training it every month, you need to be spending time in there every month to stay fresh,
to see it.
And to learn new things.
So I think it's both. But I think as a trainer, I think she's spot on. You need to go out there and kind of see it, feel it, touch it, and be part of it to kind of live it, so you can train it effectively.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me of a Journey song with loving, touching, squeezing.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a great thing about it, and one of the things it allowed me to do by doing that every month, is I got my own examples.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
I could still use, one collector did this, or an LC, something an LC does, but I can actually give my own true examples and relate more to their experiences, because I spent 8 hours a month doing their job.
An LC, you just use the acronym LC, loan consultant.
Yeah, loan
I would just put
consultant.
that in the Mosby Learning Dictionary.
Collector.
There you go.
Funder, whatever job it is.
Collector's a little bit more of a word.
Yeah.
LC, not quite as accessible.
Yeah, and I think
Employee.
that builds the credibility. It's so important to build that credibility.
Yeah.
Especially with certain groups.
That was one of the things that I kind of struggled with in certain parts too, because I would have to bring in people, and I got to tell other people's stories sometimes, And
groups.
that was one of the things that I kind of struggled with in certain parts too, because I would have to bring in people, and I got to tell other people's stories sometimes, and it's difficult to kind of beat that down and get comfortable with telling that. It kind of reminds me of that scene in Reservoir Dogs where I think he's talking to that agent and he's trying to make sure that he gets the story straight. So he's telling it's like it's a first person story. I think the guy's in a restroom and there's a cop that comes in with a cop or something like that. Or the cop that comes in with a dog.
Oh, it's been a long time since I've seen
Yeah.
that movie.
Anyways, the people that get it will get it. It's not a joke. I mean, it's just you have to kind of embody the story so that it sounds legitimate when you tell it, to give yourself credibility and not look like a complete sham. But deep down we know. All right. 2 more pieces. Tie the topic to a job or task whenever possible. That seems easy enough. And the next one that I thought was interesting, them for analogies about the material.
Love
I thought
it.
that was really interesting.
I love it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'd never thought about that, but it's a good idea because so often I try to provide an analogy and I don't really push subject matter experts, say, you give me one, because maybe my analogy doesn't work, It's possible. I'm just saying it's possible. It's not likely, but it's possible.
Same old Dan.
So again, the
I'm
articles are going to
great.
be found mosby.ca/017 for this episode. The next one I want to jump to is the Royal Canadian Air Force puts restrictions on training aircraft after 3 engine-related incidents.
Ooh.
So these training aircrafts, they say 3 engine-related incidents, but they were in other militaries. So May through November, there are these particular vehicles, these training aircraft. Okay, we do. It's terrific. But the
So is it like?
It's not-
Well, no, the Mounties are the police, right? Okay.
that's right.
Okay.
Well, they're like your feds, if I can use an analogy.
They're
Oh,
like
really?
the feds? They're not like the state
Really?
police?
Yeah, no. So we have the OPP, the Ontario Provincial Police. So we have state police, but the Mounties are the federal federal police force.
But then what do you call police?
Which police?
Like regular police.
Police?
OPP.
Well, no, those would be the state ones. The equivalent of your state troopers.
Okay, so Mounties
Do you have a
are
CIA?
Regional.
federal, like FBI.
Yeah.
What
I guess
about
that's what I meant by
CIA?
federal, yeah. What?
Do you have a CIA?
CIA, yeah, that's called CSIS, actually.
Or are
we do
the
have one here.
Mounties like the Texas Rangers?
No. Texas Rangers are their own deal.
Oh.
No. Texas Rangers are their own deal.
Oh.
I don't think we have a ranger equivalent. I could be wrong.
Do you have an army?
That's neither here nor there.
Do you have an army?
Do we? Yeah. Well, yeah. This is part of the Air Force thing. Yeah.
Well, no.
Yeah, we have an
That's
army.
different, right? Do you have a
Yes.
Marines?
No, you're right. So we have an army. We don't have. I don't know if we have Marines. Yeah, I think we do.
But you have
Maybe.
horses.
I never claimed to be an expert on Canadian military information. I never claimed this. So send your complaints to mosbylearning@gmail.com and Adam can pass them along to me.
But you're like our only Canadian friend. That's why.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. You guys need to get a more diverse group of friends.
Did you
All
miss
right,
us, Dan?
so- It's been a nice holiday season, I'll tell you that. it's been nice,
All right, so the
um,
RCAF, which is, it could go under our dictionary, the Royal Canadian Air.
Not entirely true. No, what they did was they kind of locked up the excess
I
use
don't
of
read
these
the
particular
articles.
aircraft.
No, I'm reading it right now.
I'm glad somebody prepares for this, guys.
Did this time.
That being me, they stopped using like public support things. So if you guys have like a flyover, they do flyovers sometimes or
Yeah, all
air
the time.
shows.
Yeah.
So they stopped doing extra sort of things and they just kind of dialed back a little bit. But here's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this was because this goes back to the technical training piece where things can go wrong. Now nobody was injured in these interesting incidents. There were malfunctions of sorts, but it seems like the people were able to handle them. And with technical training, you can't always rely on. You should. In this case, especially if you're 20,000 feet in the air, you want to rely on the equipment. It seems like the people were able to handle them. And with technical training, you can't always rely on, you should, in this case, especially if you're, 20,000 feet in the air, you want to rely on the equipment, but maybe something does go sideways and it's best to be prepared. And that's actually one of the things that they did. And I'm going to read this paragraph here. It's because it's not only a sentence, it's also a paragraph. RCAF has decided to reduce all non-essential flying like flypass, which support to public displays, and boost the training on engine-related emergencies so that air crew are better prepared to handle an emergency. Now, how often have I heard the phrase, we train to a perfect world? Like the training exists only so far as the smoothness of the process, or we follow the bouncing ball, but we don't go outside of it. And I think that largely that's kind of the role that we should occupy, because if all you do is train to exceptions, and this always pisses me off when everybody's like, well, what about this? The questions are perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with the questions, but it's like that one asshole that just wants to be like, well, what about? It's like, no, man, just be quiet and we're going to do this thing properly. And then if you want to kibitz on lunch and come on over, let's have a ham sandwich. We'll talk about it. But I just wonder if there are times or have you guys ever decided like this particular issue or this error we're going to train to, and we're going to include that in the material? You ever done that?
Haven't really done that, but I can see a need for that, right? So depending upon other industries, specifically, you give them an error and then you focus on how to solve that error. Mm-hmm. And so you're basically creating simulations with errors that you have to have people think about, right? So I don't necessarily know if it really makes sense for a lot of what we do, but I definitely see an opportunity for that of, hey, this is going wrong. What are you going to do in that situation? And then you can think about how do you course correct, or what's your remediation plan?
Yeah, and from the area that, like, I could see that for like, I'm thinking, I could see that for like IT training, who troubleshoot.
Well, I was thinking about this because I think when we did our kind of for the brief minute in history, we were bringing people back for more training. I had built into the loan scenarios a couple specific errors, so that they could see that, but they were errors that I think were common enough out there in the world that they would have confronted them. But this was already after they had to have it exclusively in there. Or not exclusively, but you don't want to have it too much in the material. All right, there's one more for training related things, and this is from the Bangkok Post.
Where did you get this article? I looked at the title. I'm like, is that normal reading for you, or?
Yeah.
No, what do you want me to do? I mean, I'm looking for articles about training. This is one training offered to
really weird
illegal
articles
workers.
this week.
Yeah.
Hey, so I am next to one of the biggest countries in the world that seems to have some article about immigration all the time. So I thought, why don't we talk about this? Illegal workers. You guys ever seen an illegal worker hanging out on a Home Depot? No?
No, we have a wall.
Okay, well, once you get your wall, you might not have that problem. But so here's the thing.
I was confused by this article.
You were confused by it? I think there's some important things that are left out of the article. I'll tell you that right now. But here's the deal. I mean, the short version of this is that. So here's the thing.
I was confused by this article.
You were confused by it? I think there's some important things that are left out of the article. I'll tell you that right now. But here's the deal. I mean, the short version of this is that there are, what did they say, 10,000, 8,000...
just said thousands. It just said thousands.
What?
It just said thousands.
Thousands. All right. Well, yeah, thousands. So there are thousands of Thai workers in South Korea that have overstayed their visitor visas because they're traveler visas, but they're not actually traveling. They're working there. And so there's thousands of these folks hanging out in South Korea. And South Korea said, y'all got to get out. By July 1st of 2020. So that clock's ticking, man. And if they don't get out by then, they're going to have a 10-year ban from re-entering the country along with steep fines because, they're working illegally, which, you're not supposed to do. I know this because I worked legally. So what was interesting, what I thought, and the only reason why I brought this up, not because they refer to Thai massage shops in Seoul, but because they say that Thailand's going to offer these returning.
Oh, is that who's offering it?
Yeah, it's Thailand.
It's Thailand, yeah.
It's when you come back, we're going to train you.
Okay, so
that's right.
I was really confused on that part.
Well, now you know.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I missed a word. Okay.
So Thailand is saying, hey, come on back. Well, Korea's saying GTFO. Y'all need to leave. And Thailand's saying, all right, come on back. And the Institute for Skill Development and Office of Skill Development are going to provide training in 76 provinces. I didn't know how many there were in Thailand, but there's at least 76, which I thought was interesting that they would retrain people, whether they're, and they list kind of, classes in massage, cooking, and construction. So maybe not...
which I just thought that was really interesting of...
massage, cooking, and construction. So maybe not...
which I just thought that was really interesting of... Here, we're going to train you to help come back to the country. How to get massages, how to cook, and then construction work. Like those are
three obviously in demand.
Well, and it seems what? Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Those
I feel like you guys are reading.
Do they have like a lot of restaurant boom?
Yeah.
In
and a lot of
Thailand?
massages.
Restaurants. That's why
I understand the construction
piece.
work to make restaurants and massage parlors, but it's just kind of an interesting three things that they're deciding to train them on.
And okay, this is where we're going to get dinged from Portland. But being Asian, usually Asian massage parlors are something else.
Well,
here at least.
I don't know what you're talking about, but this is a family podcast, Gibbs. Come on now.
And that's news from the Bangkok Post.
Yes, and of course that link you can find at mosby.ca/017 because we want to make sure you guys are up on things. Come on, it's an interesting article. Okay, moving on because that's the end of that nonsense. There was a thing that I wanted to. We still have a couple more things to go through here, folks. So we got a big chat that we're going to talk about regarding some customer service training. Well, at least a medium chat. Let's call it that. Excuse me.
There's one more article, though.
Is there?
Yeah, the Detroit fire guys.
Well, so that's not so much an article as it is something that I want to talk about. Is this a training issue? So here's the article.
Sorry.
The article.
Okay.
No, that's okay. That's okay. You're absolutely right. There's another article, but it's not. This is a can training fix it situation, and this is also hot off the press. This is a January 2nd article, and that's today. So the Detroit firefighters may face discipline. Detroit has a long, colorful history of burning shit down.
Yes.
They really, really do. You live there. So Angels Night. You remember Angels Night?
No, it was Devil's Night.
It got so bad at Devil's Night, they had to rebrand it Angels Night, and then they had troops of people walking around to try and prevent things from getting burned to the ground.
And, people around the country, so Gibbs, have you ever heard of Devil's Night?
Mm-mm.
You haven't heard of Devil's Night?
No, it's a Midwest Detroit thing.
Yeah.
And so
that's weird.
I'm not a Midwesterner.
So here's what Devil's Night is, basically. The night before Halloween, Detroit burns shit. Their houses, they run around and burn houses to the ground. This is Devil's Night.
Like a riot?
No, they just burn houses like arsonists. So there's so many vacant houses across Detroit, and it's been going around like since the 70s, and they just burn houses. So it really doesn't have
like a riot.
No, they just burn houses like arsonists. So there's so many vacant houses across Detroit, and it's been going around like since the 70s, and they just burn houses. So it really doesn't happen as much today. But when I was a kid, Devil's Night, and people would go out, you'd egg houses, things like that. That's what we did as kids. But
just
in the city, they would burn houses. The whole city would burn. And it was called Devil's Night.
That's crazy.
Now, just a quick note here. Adam, you are a Sparty, is that true?
I am.
And they're not entirely innocent from burning things, historically speaking. So I don't know if you're qualified to talk on this story. That's all I'm saying.
I went through several riots when I was at Michigan State. When I was there, actually,
Go blue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So no, I did. I was I don't want to say part of, but I was through a couple riots out through Cedar Village and also a Gunson riot. And what I learned out of that entire thing, and this is actually very important for people, if there's tear gas, you do not go in the basement.
Oh, that's good. That's a helpful tip.
So,
Why?
If you
That's
run
a Mosby learning tip. I love it.
Because there's
tear
no air vents?
No, and tear gas actually goes down, right? So it kind of stays low to the ground.
Oh.
And so we all ran in, and all the houses in Michigan, they have basements. And so we were out on the streets in Cedar Village. Cedar Village is a kind of a dumpy apartment complex where all the college kids live, and that's where some of the fires were going on. And then we're out there kind of partying, drinking, and doing all of that. And then the cops shot tear gas. And so we ran into one of the houses because we were out on the front lawn. We ran into one of the houses that was next to the apartments, and they all had basements. And so we kind of ran down to the basement, and then all the tear gas. Yeah. So
Good Lord.
So if
Crazy.
you're ever doing anything like that. But yes, I did and was around for several of the riots when they first began. There was 3, I believe, when I was there. Definitely 2. I believe there was a 3rd.
It's a little hazy.
My whole 6-year career was too, yes.
So, okay, I'm bringing this up because, it's obviously, it's an interesting article. There's a bunch of maybe, 15 guys, something like that, a bunch of firefighters, and we're posing in front of a house that's burning down in Detroit, and it's not too far away from a house. It's about 10 feet away from another house that's right beside it that's not yet burning down. And it seems like some people thought this was in bad taste. Now...
The picture is ridiculous. You need to post a picture on the show notes on this one. In fact, we should just change the logo of the podcast to that for this podcast. Probably not a good idea.
Probably not a good idea. No, this photo was posted on Facebook and later taken down after firefighters discovered they may be in trouble. More than 15 firefighters were photographed posing in front of a vacant house with flames burning through the roof, dangerously close to another vacant house. The picture was posted on the Facebook page of Detroit Fire Incidents page, which is run by civilians, below the caption, "Crews take a moment to get a selfie on New Year's Eve." So this is let me ask you. So first off, as we always do, is this a training problem? But
before we answer that, the story gets a little bit better. You didn't read the next paragraph there. It must be somebody's retirement also, because the Detroit Fire Commissioner was not amused. And he says, there are a lot of ways to celebrate a retirement. Taking a photo in front of a building fire is not one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was Detroit Fire Commissioner Eric Jones.
That is the way to go. There are a lot of ways to celebrate a retirement. Taking a photo in front of a building fire is not one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was Detroit Fire Commissioner Eric Jones.
That is the way to go
amused.
out. I got to tell you, when I retire, I just want to stand in front of a burning building. I'm out. He's out.
So okay, so you've got pretty much the full picture now, ladies and gentlemen. And do we think this is a problem that needs to be solved? Let me ask you that.
Yes.
Okay, so we think it's a problem that should be solved. People shouldn't be taking selfies in front of burning buildings. Now, there's a lot of things that we don't know. Maybe the other building was scheduled to be burnt down. I don't know. Maybe the other building is already been hosed down, and this is just a controlled burn, because sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes you can't save it. Sometimes what's there is not worth saving. And I don't mean to bag on Detroit, but there's some stuff there that it's already burned down. So if it's burning down, just get out of the way and let it fall, But
So
assuming...
I thought, because for a second I thought, a lot of what the firefighters do for training is they set old houses on fire and then they work on putting them out, and that's part of their training, and then demolishing it. Where I live, down actually on a main road where I live, that I drive down every day, there used to be this house there, right? And it was abandoned, etc. Well, the firemen came in, set the house on fire, and completely demolished it and used it as a training situation.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and so it was kind of cool because you were driving by and you were watching them train and practice doing it, etc., and putting
Did they
it
do
out.
They probably didn't do it at the stroke of midnight though on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, and so when I first saw it and putting
Did they
it
do
out,
it they probably didn't do it at the stroke of midnight though on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, and so when I first saw it, I was like, oh, maybe they're doing a training thing. So.
Well, I guess we don't know that they weren't. It doesn't seem as though at least the fire commissioner didn't think they were. He doesn't say explicitly this is not a training thing, but he doesn't say otherwise either.
I don't think it was, but when I saw the picture, I thought
that's what it reminded me of.
Before even starting to read the article, I was like, oh, maybe it was a training thing, because our podcast is about training.
There's it is. Speaking of, so kind of on a related note, I'm listening to an interview with on the Joe Rogan podcast, a guy named Forrest Galante, who's oh boy, what is he? He is some sort of I don't know what the hell he is, but he's steeped in wildlife, and people have actually approached him and say, hey man, stop taking so many pictures with wildlife because other people are doing it too. And you know how there's always a bunch of idiots that take a picture in front of a bear and then they die because they tried to take a picture in front of a bear and it killed them. It's just one of those things where, okay, maybe these guys know what they're doing and it's not a big deal, but it's out of context, so it doesn't look great. And if other people did it, it would be bad form. And I don't know, maybe it is something that they shouldn't have done. But I guess if it's something they shouldn't have done, is this something that should come up in training, or is this just an obvious thing, we think?
I'm going to go with it's an obvious thing.
It's an obvious thing. All right, so it's not a training issue.
It's not a training issue because even taking the picture is in poor taste. Even if it was a training, I think it's in poor taste because of the... they are, quote, pillars of the community, right? They're telling people what to do and stopping.
Who said that? Who said that?
Firemen. They're looked upon. They're
no. We want to look at athletes and musicians. Those are the pillars.
Definitely athletes. Yeah. Yes. Love athletes.
And actors.
Yes.
Actors.
Actors too.
Yeah.
But Instagram models, that whole thing. But I think at the end of the day, even posting, they're not showing what people should do. So they shouldn't be posting it, even if it was a training thing, which it wasn't at New Year's Eve. But they shouldn't be posting that because if there is a fire, they should be trying to actively put it out. They're not, because then all you have is people going on YouTube and going, the house next to me is burning. Check this out. And then they're posting videos of that.
I tell you what, a world before Facebook, this isn't a problem. So maybe Facebook's the problem. I don't know. Okay. Well, we've established that job aid is not going to solve this problem. Thank you very much for entertaining that issue. And again, this you'll find this link at mosby.ca/017. And Gibbs, I'd like to kind of turn it over to you because link at mosby.ca/017. And Gibbs, I'd like to kind of turn it over to you because you said that you had this recent experience that did specifically tie into training. Many of your experiences do not, that we've heard about so far, but this particular one did. I'm just saying.
I have many life experiences.
Yes, you do. Well, you've lived a long and storied life, so that's good. So tell us this particular story. Where were you? This is a restaurant? This was a grocery store? Where were you?
No, it's a grocery store. So, so I guess for me, customer service in the last, let's just say a decade or so, has gone down really bad. It's like, and I don't want to say it's the generations, etc. or not.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, it's all the millennials.
It's all those Adams and Dans. But so, couple things happen, and there's a certain grocery store I go to all the time. Not always the best customer service. I do like this grocery store for the fact that it hires people with special needs, which I definitely appreciate and applaud. But the overall customer service is really bad. So there's been times when I've gone there and, there's this one time a cashier, like, no baggers, never have enough baggers, first of all. It sounds
like my grocery store. Does it start with a K?
Yes, it is your grocery store. And so, like, you're bagging the stuff, right? Because they didn't have enough baggers.
Pisses me off.
And the girl who was the cashier was like, rang up all my stuff, and then it's card in to pay, because I'm waiting for you to pay. Like, didn't even help me. So that's just one of the many things where it's just like terrible. So this last time, well, it's not the last time, but when I went there a few weeks ago, so I'm in line, I put all my stuff on there. The cashier doesn't even look at me, doesn't even say hello, doesn't even say, did you find everything okay, etc. And so, as Adam knows, at this store, they send coupons. So they track what you buy with your rewards card, and then they send you coupons. So, I have all these coupons. And first thing I do is I give them to the girl. And then she goes through all my stuff, and then she's like, well, your total is blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, did you put my coupons in? In a nice way, right? And she's like, no. And I was like, well, can you put them in? She's like, I can't do that anymore because it already charged the full amount.
Oh.
And I was like, so you can't do it? And she's like,
well,
no.
So hang on. So you had handed her the coupons?
Yeah, and she forgot. And then she says, well, you have to go to customer service. Take the receipt and go to customer service, and they'll take all the coupons off for you.
Sounds helpful.
Which was not well. And first of all, I kind of get angry when I go grocery shopping there because, again, don't have enough baggers and not enough cashiers. But she didn't even apologize. She didn't say something like, and I didn't say in the meanwhile. I was like, hey, did you remember my coupons? And she's like, no, you need to go to customer service because it's too late. But
Now, is it possible that there was a slight edge to your voice when you asked her?
Not at that moment.
Okay.
But basically,
shortly thereafter, there was an edge.
I can't do it. You have to go to customer service. So, of course, I'm bagging my stuff, right? Because the other person who is helping me bag, not a special needs person, but a, completely, person who could
How are
be
you going to
doing
dig out
it.
of this one, Gibbs?
Yeah.
No shit. This is fun to watch, though.
So I'm bagging, and this cashier is like glaring at me.
But they're
Glaring at me like it's my fault that I shouldn't be upset that that she forgot to put the coupons. Like glaring at me like I'm a bitch, right? And so I was getting heated.
Is it possible she had history with you?
No, I've never seen this girl in my life. And so I'm sitting there because, they turn over a lot.
That's why she's pissed off.
They turn over a lot. And so I'm bagging and stuff, and she says something like, oh, no. So the bagger says, do you need help out? And I'm like, no. They turn over a lot. And so I'm bagging and stuff, and she says something like, oh, no. So the bagger says, do you need help out? And I'm like, no, I have to go to customer service now because you guys all forgot to put my coupons in. Because by then I was pissed because the girl was glaring at me like it was my problem. So I went to the customer service to get my coupons. And, of course, for me, by that time, I was like, I need a manager right now. You can't help me.
Ooh, you did the manager call.
Yes, I was pissed. And so I went to the manager, and this lady's like smiling the whole time, and she's trying to be nice. And I was like, look, here's my issue. I explained the situation, and I'm like, and here's the issue is this has always been the problem. You guys have issues with teaching your people customer service skills. I was like, I'm sure I am not the first person to complain already about the service that you all give. And she smiled the whole time, and I was like, do you guys not care about your employees? Do you guys not have training classes on how to give customer service? I said, because you are only hurting your business. And I said, right now, the only reason I come to you is because you were the closest grocery store within 6 miles of my house.
Did you leave her a Mosby Learning consulting package?
I wanted
with you
to.
And fees?
And she was like, yeah, I know we have problems, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, but when this girl leaves, she's not going to be a better employee. she's going to go around and do the same things, and she's never going to get further in life because she doesn't know how to give customer service. I said, so either one of the things, I said, so you're hurting them. And she's like, well, robots will eventually be taking all their jobs.
That's telling.
And then she starts laughing. I'm like, true. So how are you going to help her get a better job and then she starts laughing. I'm like, true. So how are you going to help her get a better job that a robot won't have?
You were just going off.
Yeah, because I was pissed. And it takes a lot for me to get angry. And so I just had it. And so it ended up, and you know how she fixed the problem for me? How the manager fixed my problem? She gave me $10 back.
Ooh.
An extra $10.
Did that cover the coupons?
No, I got like $7 back from the coupons and then $10. She's like, so she talked to the person that works at the desk and says, give her $10 on top of her coupons.
Nice.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I mean, that's obviously not a great story. It's kind of a lengthy one, but I think I think the point's fair that.
But I can tell you, from a customer service perspective, it's pervasive at this organization because our customer
grocery store,
this grocery store, organization,
okay.
Grocery store, whatever you want to call it. I mean,
I don't know if you're talking about your organization.
No,
or not.
this organization, the one that Gibbs is talking about, because we happen to shop at the same one,
not
the same place.
Sorry.
Whoops.
Who cares?
There we go. But ours is horrible. Also, our customer service at the place is horrible, and actually was in there on 2 days before New Year's, so 3 days ago, 4 days ago. And when you think about, when are you going to be probably really busy? Well, probably 2 days before New Year's, you're going to be really busy. How do you have one lane open? How do you not schedule accordingly? That your entire basis. So they had a line of people wrapped around into the aisles, standing there with cash in hand. Hi, can I pay you? And people are getting mad. And it was ridiculous. And then they're sitting there and we have the same bagging issues. So it's really something that she's talking about, that you can see that the company doesn't invest in the customer service, or really thinking about how they make people better for their actual guest experience.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of guest experiences, Adam, you have recently been a guest of
I have.
Of the mouse.
The mouse, yes. Love the mouse, because that ties, actually, I tossed that in on the show notes there, ties into customer service. I just got back from 7-day cruise with Disney, and
now just jumping real quick, I'm sorry. Sure. My understanding is, as soon as you get near a Disney sort of facility or a cruise, do they hand you a glass of Kool-Aid as soon as you get near there? Is that how it works?
Once they verify that your checking account and your credit card goes through, absolutely, everything's on board. You pay for that Kool-Aid, but you like it too. But you want to talk about customer service, and I was looking a little bit, and I didn't have a chance to do as much research as I wanted to, but the Disney does they're phenomenal for customer service, and they actually outsource some of their customer service to other companies at the Disney Institute. But you see it all throughout the parks. You see it in, our servers on the cruise. If you haven't been on a Disney cruise, highly recommend it. Bar none is amazing. They go out of their way to make sure your experience is fantastic, and make sure your kids' experience is fantastic. And these are people that are working 14 hours a day, 6 months straight with no days off. We talked to our server. They get no days off in 6 months. None. They get a couple hours off. So they will do like breakfast, lunch, and dinner most days. And then some days they don't have to do breakfast and lunch, but they always have to do dinner. And there's 2 dinner servings. Each one is over 2 hours long. So in 6 months, they get no days off. And these people are going out of their way to make my kids happy, excited. We're talking magic tricks. It was ridiculous. My son, who's 4 years old, came to dinner by the 3rd day. Do you have a magic trick today? It was like, there are servers are serving us food, but they're phenomenal. And so much so that I will say, and I'll stop bragging on Disney, but so much so that our room steward, he did a good job. I mean, he cleaned the room adequately. it was noticed that if we went to anywhere else, we would have said, oh, it was good. I mean, clean the service. Because he wasn't above and beyond, we actually noticed. He was one of the cast members that we came in contact with that was not above and beyond.
But still really good.
Well, let's say he was good. I wouldn't say really good. He was okay.
See, his lore story was as long as mine.
Yeah. So the training side of this.
Let's talk about Disney.
No. So, okay, we've got it backwards again. All right. No, but they do have folks that go there and train specifically. Do you know any more about the way that they kind of shop out their customer service experiences?
I briefly in the Disney Institute from that side, but I do know how they train some of their cast members. Their cast members, they go through even the small things in training to make a magical experience for their guests. And they go even, I was reading an article about how Disney trains customer service, and they will, not just say, where's Mickey? They have to think about how they say, where's Mickey? Because there's multiple Mickeys in the park. And so things of thinking about the guest experience is what they do. And it permeates.
And Disney Institute, which is in Disney World, actually they give customer service workshops to other companies, and other companies send it, so they learn how to be as customer service awesome as Disney, because they're world class.
Yes.
Thanks for listening. Yep. I agree. And I can't drink the Kool-Aid, guys. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I'm excited, and I've had one experience at Disney. It was fine.
Magical.
The experience.
Magical.
Okay. Okay. I gotta bleep that again. That's great. Okay. I'll just jot down that time code.
Mine was a mistake. His was straight out.
Yeah, well, okay. So is there anything else that you guys want to talk about customer service training? The training side of it?
No.
Oh, it's a sad day for Mosby. Okay. Then we're going to move on to the next, we're just about done here, folks. There's only one more thing that I do want to touch on, and that is kind of a favorite thing, it's really, I like to call it a good thing.
It's a good thing.
And this is something that I got for Christmas. Well, I didn't get it for Christmas. My kid got it for Christmas from my sister. But I happen to know the author of this book. It's a book called Ping, and it's written by a woman named Ani Castillo. And it's a really cool book that talks about kind of addresses the locus of control. That you have certain control over things, but you don't really have control over the outcomes of those things. Or the idea is with the ping, you put something out into the world, but you don't know necessarily what comes back to you, And, well, that's not, unlike this podcast. We put it together. We put it out into the world. We don't know what comes back. If there is something you want to send back about it, mosbylearning@gmail.com, you can do that there. But this is, it's a really beautiful book. It would appear as though it's created for a child. But I think I think it's bigger than that. And Annie, I actually had the privilege of meeting her a couple times because she's a good friend of my sister's. And she's a fascinating woman. She's really, really cool. She's got a great story and, keeps getting better. And this particular book, she wrote it and illustrated it basically as a philosophy book. But it's very accessible language for kids. It kind of helped me. You can put really complicated ideas in front of kids in a book, but it's very accessible language for kids. It kind of helped me. You can put really complicated ideas in front of kids if you have the right analogy or the right story to go with it. And this was certainly one of them. So that was a cool book.
That does look delicious.
So I'll have a link to the show notes for that as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap this up. Like I said, the show notes, you can find those mosby.ca/017. And Twitter, we are Mosby, at Mosby Learning on Twitter. Is that right? Do I have that right?
We are. That is correct.
It's a beautiful handle because that's the name of the show. So it really comes together nicely.
Just rhymes, yes.
In that sense. And I didn't print off the page that has all of the there we go. All of the different contacts. All right, Gibbs, where do you want people to find you?
LinkedIn. And
LinkedIn. As always, I love it. GIBBS. Thank you very much. Adam, how about yourself? Where can folks find you if they were so inclined?
LinkedIn or Twitter.
LinkedIn or Twitter. Oh, this is interesting. Now you're saying Twitter too. Do you mean Mosby Learning? You mean at Mosby Learning?
Well, yeah, or you can go with the personal Twitter. Looking up those followers too. I don't know.
Okay,
MSU Spartan with no A at the end.
What is it?
MSU SPARTN.
MSU SSPA. No, I'm not going to say it. You said it. You guys just
we'll
rewind
stay
it.
With we'll stay with the Mosby Learning, or
go with Mosby
just
Learning.
LinkedIn.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You can find me if you were looking. LinkedIn, you can just find me Dan Hirt, HIRT. If you're on Instagram, Dan Talks Training. That's what I am there. Twitter, Dan Talks LN. As in Nancy, D, Dan Talks LND. And YouTube, I am on the YouTubes, and so are a lot of the, some of the podcast episodes that we've had so far. I put them out there. I'm going to try to put little snippets for appropriate pieces as well. And I think I'm just Daniel Hirt. So if you look me up, Daniel Hirt, you can find me on YouTube, and that's where you can find these shows as well. If you're looking for the music that you hear during these shows, you can probably go to incompetech.com. Check that out. That's Kevin McLeod does a lot of this work here. And that's it. So please check it out. If I can give you one small thing to ask, is just let us know maybe where you're hearing this, and you can reach out to us individually on our various social media platforms, or you can email us at mosbylearning@gmail.com. And as soon as that email comes in, Adam is going to tweet out some sort of bat signal that lets us know that we got it. So thank you guys very much for listening. Adam and Cynthia, thank you both, and we'll talk to you next week.
See ya.
bye.
All right, friends. That's another podcast. This is what you do. I've heard previously you are the average of the 5 people you